Good afternoon and welcome. We are in Freshman English, and we are now looking at Romeo and Juliet, Act 5. You're in your hymnals on page 915 and following. Let me make some general observations, as I am often wont to do, and then we will begin this process. Let's just go ahead and say it out loud. Everything goes sideways in Act 5. To this point, and this is important for your notes, to this point in the play, this play can still end and they lived happily ever after. It can, to this point. Remember how Act 4 ends. Act 4 ends with the supposed death of Juliet and her burial. How is it possible that things could end still well?
The plan works.
You got it. The plan works. Now let's quote for a second here the famous Scottish poet Burns, who said, "The best laid plans of mice and men soon off do go awry." That is to say, sideways. That is to say, they get jacked up. So, let's say it out loud. This play is a play about plans going awry. Timing not working out. Misinformation. Write that word down. It is a huge one. Misinformation. People thinking some kind of information is happening when in fact it's not happening. Okay? People planning on things happening and something goes screwy. Something goes sideways. In the end of this play, all of those sideways events lead to, of course, the tragic death of, we always mention Romeo and Juliet, but there are other deaths to attend as well. We'll ask at the end of this play how many deaths there have been in this play. It's an interesting bit of trivia. How many deaths there's been in this play, and clearly it's going to be a whole lot more than simply Romeo and Juliet at the end of Act 5. Let's now turn to 5:1. We will begin with some observations from Romeo. He will be, are you ready for this? Hello? He will be in the best of moods right up until he's told the terrible news. What is the terrible news? Juliet has died. Okay? I want you to look at the dark ironies that Shakespeare will play here as he joins earlier comments by Romeo right before he went to the party. Remember when he said, "I got a bad feeling"? Now Romeo's going to say, "I got a great feeling." Kind of. We'll come back to dreams, and Shakespeare's ending his play. Let's break our heart together. Here we go. 5:1. Follow along. You're on page 915. Here we go. Me? Look at that tape.
I think your player got jacked.
Sarah. Go ahead and read this speech of Romeo's on your own and identify the ways in which all kinds of ironies will be taking place. Look at what he mentions in this speech here in 5:1. Go ahead and read it on your own.
If I may trust the flattering truth of sleep, my dreams presage some joyful news at hand. My bosom's Lord sits lightly in his throne, and all this day an unaccustomed spirit lifts me above the ground with cheerful thoughts.
Let's just point out, this is like the very first time in the entire play that Romeo has said, "I got a great feeling. Everything's going to work out awesome." Notice all the other times it's been, he's kind of like the Eeyore of the play. For those of you that know Pooh's Corner, Nothing's ever that good. That's been Romeo to this point. Now all of a sudden, note the irony. When Romeo decides to become Tigger, yay, everything is great. Yeah, not so much.
No.
Heaven found me dead, strange dream that gives a dead man leave to think. And breathed such life with kisses in my lips that I revived them as an emperor. Ah, me, how sweet is love itself possessed when but love's shadows are so rich in joy.
What's the irony? Write it in your notes. What's interesting about the fact that Romeo would reference his dream?
Oh, he said he was going to die.
Good, keep going. We had a very famous speech by who in this play about dreams, and more particularly, what it is when you dream. The Queen Mab speech of Mercutio, very good. Let's point out, this idea of dreams has always been a fascinating study. Maybe the most significant of the late 19th century, early 20th century was Sigmund Freud's interpretation of dreams. F-R-E-U-D, Freud, Sigmund, first name, interpretation of dreams. Freud said you can learn a lot about a person by simply having that person tell you what his or her dreams are about. Here, notice Romeo got some of it right. He says, I dreamed I saw my girl. Yeah, right.
From Verona, how now, Balthazar, dost thou not bring me letters from the friar? How doth my lady? Is my father well? How fares that Juliet? That I ask again, for nothing can be ill if she be well.
Then she is well, and nothing can be ill. Her body sleeps in Capel's monument, and her immortal part with angels lives. I saw her laid low in her kindred's vault, and presently took post to tell it you. Oh, pardon me for bringing these ill news, since you did leave it for my office.
Is it him so?
Look what he says next.
Then I defy you, stars! Thou knowest my lodging, get me ink and paper and hire post horses, I will hence tonight.
I do beseech you, sir, have patience. Your looks are pale and wild, and do import some misadventure.
Just thou art deceived. Leave me and do the thing I bid thee do. Hast thou no letters to me from the friar?
No, my good lord.
Then I take thee gone and hire those horses, I'll be with thee straight.
We've said already about both of the personalities, characters of Romeo and Juliet, that they are rash and that they are given to impulsive behavior. Romeo, in a split moment, hears Juliet is dead and is ready to join her. But now first he must speak. Watch the language.
Well, Juliet, I will lie with thee tonight. Let's see for me.
How's he going to kill himself?
Oh, mischief, thou art swift to enter in the thoughts of desperate men. I do remember an apothecary and...
Apothecary, a druggist. Remember when we saw Friar Lawrence for the first time, he was talking about the power of dope? The apothecary would be the druggist, the one who would disseminate or distribute the dope, right? Other than obviously Friar Lawrence himself.
Which late I noted in tattered weeds with overwhelming brows, culling of simples. Meager were his looks. Sharp misery had worn him to the bones, and in his needy shop a tortoise hung, an alligator stuffed, and other skins of ill-shaped fishes, and about his shelves a beggarly account of empty boxes, green earthen pots, bladders and musty seeds, remnants of pack thread and old cakes of roses were thinly scattered to make up a show. Noting this penny, to myself I said, and if a man did need a poison now would save his present death in Mantua, here lives a caitiff wretch would sell it him. Oh, this same thought did but forerun my need, and this same needy man must sell it me. As I remember, this should be the hour. Being holy day, the beggar's shop is shut. What, how? Apothecary! Come hither, man. I see that thou art poor. Hold. There is 40 ducats. Let me have a dram of poison, such soon speeding gear as will disperse itself through all the veins, that the life-weary taker may fall dead, and that the trunk may be discharged of breath as violently as hasty powder fired doth hurry from the fatal cannon's wound.
Such water drugs I have, But Mantua's law is death to any he that utters him.
Art thou so damned, full of wretchedness, and fearst to die? Famine is in thy cheeks, need and depression starveth in thy eyes. Contempt and beggary hangs upon thy back. The world is not thy friend, nor the world's law. The world affords no law to make thee rich. Then be not poor, but break it and take this.
It's an interesting sidebar, and go ahead and put it in your notes, and as honor students, we'll come back to it. Do you notice that the very first time, Brazelton, did you notice this? Very first time that Romeo speaks to the apothecary, what's the first thing he says about him? I see you're what?
Poor.
Poor. Now, what's significant about this is what we'll, for your notes, call class distinctions. Shakespeare likes to play this game. What is the difference between, for example, being born in a mansion or being born under a bridge? Growing up, incredible wealth, growing up with absolutely nothing. Would you be the same person if you grew up, for example, extremely poor versus extremely wealthy? This is an interesting question, and it's the question of class. Notice what, he comes back to it. Notice he says, the law, dude, forget about the law. Break the law because you are poor. It's as if poor people, the law doesn't quite apply to them in the same way, he says. Now, wait a minute. Romeo, rich or poor?
Rich.
He is very rich. He's a rich kid, right? So he hangs out with rich people. This is maybe one of the few times he rubs shoulders with a poor person, and he's ready to lecture the poor person about, you don't need to worry about the law. Go ahead and write down the name Marx, M-A-R-X. Karl Marx, an important philosopher, economist, philosopher of history. We'll talk more about him as we study together in our 4 years. We'll come back to this question. Is it important, the money that you grow up around or you don't grow up around? Does that actually matter? Upper class versus lower class versus middle class. Notice here Shakespeare kind of playing a game. We'll come back to it. Put a note to yourself at 3A though. We'll see it for sure next year when we do JC, Julius Caesar, and we study this notion of class distinctions, all right? The apothecary, by the way, will give him the dope.
But my will concede.
I pay thy poverty and not thy will.
Put this in any liquid thing you will, and drink it off. And if you had the strength of 20 men, it would dispatch you straight.
That is thy gold. Worse poison to men's souls, doing more murder in this loathsome world than these poor compounds that thou mayst not sell. I sell thee poison, thou hast sold me none. Farewell. Buy food, and get thyself in flesh. Come, cordial, and not poison. Go with me to Juliet's grave, for there must I use thee.
Now, Shakespeare has a challenge. Let's write it in our notes. He has a challenge. He's going to have to move from Mantua back then to Verona. And once in Verona, he's going to have to get us to that, right, that final scene in the graveyard. To get there, you've got kind of a bridge scene here where we will find out, and I got to explain this so that you understand. In Europe, you had times of great plague, infestation. One of the ways to try and keep from the plague happening is that cities would sometimes quarantine. Now, what does that mean? They would literally shut their walls, allowing no one in or out. The idea was that maybe you could keep people from being infected if you didn't allow lots of people to come in. You're going to have bad timing, where Friar Lawrence will have sent a messenger, but the messenger did not make it because of a quarantine for the plague. So that will help you to read these next few lines. Look, we're now in 5:2. Let's read along.
Holy Franciscan Friar? Brother, ho!
This same should be the voice of Friar John. Welcome from Mantua. What says Romeo? Or if his mind be writ, give me his letter.
Going to find a barefoot brother out, one of our order, to associate me here in this city visiting the sick, and finding him, the searchers of the town, suspecting that we both were in a house where the infectious pestilence did reign, sealed up the doors and would not let us forth, so that my speed to Mantua there was stayed.
Bear my letter then to Romeo.
I could not send it. here it is again, nor get a messenger to bring it thee. So fearful were they of infection.
Happy fortune! By my brotherhood, the letter was not nice, but full of charge, of dear import, and the neglecting it may do much danger. Friar John, go hence. Get me an iron crow and bring it straight unto my cell.
Brother, I'll go and bring it thee.
Now must I to the monument alone. Within this 3 hours will fair Juliet wake.
Right.
She will beshrew me much that Romeo hath had no notice of these accidents. But I will write again to Mantua, and keep her at my cell till Romeo come. Poor living corse closed in a dead man's tomb.
So you got multiple issues here. Let's put them in your notes real quickly. A couple of things of major concern. Once the word has not gotten to Romeo, what is it that Friar Lawrence says? Right at the top, notice of page 920. Unhappy fortune. Remember what Romeo says when he kills Tybalt? I am fortune's foe, remember? You got this game that's being played by Shakespeare with this idea of bad luck, we might say, bad luck. In other words, oh no, nothing's working out. What is it that's primarily on Lawrence's mind? Jot down in your notes. What's the first thing? What about Juliet?
So she's going to wake up.
Right. She's buried alive in total darkness with all these dead bodies lying around her. She's going to wake up and expect to see who there?
Romeo.
Not only Romeo, but who?
Him.
Friar Lawrence is also, that's the plan, right? So Friar Lawrence says, it's okay, I got a solution, a 2-part solution. One, he's going to take care of Romeo how?
He's going to
Write another note. 2, he's going to take care of Juliet how?
take it to his cell.
What's with the crowbar?
Here we can break in.
You're right, he's going to have to literally break in to the tomb, to the mausoleum. He's going to get Juliet. He's going to bring Juliet back to his cell. Where? Then Romeo will come. They'll then get to leave. Up to this point, let's put it in our notes, things still could work out. Things still could work out. That's what makes this such a tragedy, is that right up until the very last scene of this play, things could work out.
Well, because even if Romeo would have waited.
It's all about timing, isn't it? You got it. It's
Lecture
all about
down.
timing, right? It's all about timing. And of course, in this play, all of the timing, are we going to say it's bad timing or good timing? Because see, notice you got lots of interesting good timing. If you really like the love story of Romeo and Juliet, he goes to the party, he gets to see her, he jumps over a wall to get away from his pals, and what do you know? It's Juliet's backyard. What do you know? Juliet comes out. What do you know? Let's have a conversation. See how this works? It's one of those things with who knows what's good and what's bad, right? Of course, what do we have left? Only one scene. 5-3. Go ahead and flip through your book real quick and see how long it is. Notice Romeo going to give us a lot of information in a long scene to finish our play.